If there was one way to actually make your websites look better, it will be to give them more breathing space. And in this video, we're going to be talking just about that. So if you're interested, stay tuned.
And it's a ticket talking margin for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma.
What's going on, guys? My name is LuckyBlackCat and I do videos about website design, UX design and the overall design process, as well as I share with you my journey as I build my career as a website and UX designer. On today's video, I want to share with you one of the tips that I think will enhance the experience of almost every website, and that is to give your website more breathing room or more space for elements to breathe and to be able to display without being all crowded together. And one way to think about this is like, let's think about you and I. Let's say you are in a crowded area and someone is trying to find you, right? Everything on your website should lead from one point to the next. So let's think about someone trying to find you on a crowded area. You have a lot of people nearby you, so if someone is trying to find you, that will be quite difficult. And this is the same case that happens when someone is trying to read something on your website or on an app that you're creating, on a user interface that you're creating, and they can't sort of figure out where they have to go to next, what they have to read next, because everything is crowded. So what you would normally do to be able to be found in a crowded area is that you will step outside from the crowds and now you will be clearly seen from anywhere. And this is the same thing again on the website. So now that you move elements to the left, further to the left, or something further to the right, maybe you add some padding to the title, you add some margins to your buttons, to your call to actions, and now everything is starts to take its own place and the place that it actually belongs to in your website. So that's why it's so important to make sure that your website has some breathing rooms, that all the elements that are on your website need to be there, but they also take the space that they need to take in order for the content and for your images to be digested a lot easier and for your user to know where to click next. One of the things that you will see once you start to design with more breathing room is that your users or the end user will always be able to know the message that you're trying to tell them. They will be able to see how things are related on your website. And if you have ever thought about like the Z pattern or the F pattern, I believe, when someone is reading a website, you will see that this starts to take place a lot better. It's a lot easier for the user to go from one point to the next. And of course, this will also help you achieve those goals that you want to achieve with your website. So I know by now you're wondering, okay, so now you told me what it is, you told me how you can benefit me as a designer and my client. Now let's talk about how you can fix it. And the first thing that I would recommend to do is to, whenever you are designing a website or a user interface for an app or anything that you're creating, always start with as few elements as you can as possible. And what I mean by this is to not throw all sort of elements on your website or on the screen that you are designing right away. Try to have a few elements like just a title and a paragraph and maybe just an image, or a title, a paragraph, and a call to action or something like this, so that you can start to see how things start to flow on the website. This is why it's so important sometimes when you are designing a website or when you're designing an interface, is to be able to create like a low fidelity wireframe where you are only using paragraphs, you're using titles, you're using, you know, just black and white buttons, just to see where the elements can flow on the website. This will also give you some clarity on elements that you don't need and how the elements flow from one section to the other. The next thing you can do with this is actually give everything a bit more padding and a bit more margins. One thing to keep in mind is that any elements that have or are related together, let's say a title and a paragraph, this one should have less padding, where an element that may not be grouped together or may not be 100% related together, like a paragraph and then a photo, this can have probably more margin to be able to separate them properly. This brings me to the next one, which is to use a grid. And I know this one may sound obvious, and I'm not sure if you're 100% familiar with what a grid system is. And if you're not, I will be making a video about this, so make sure to hit the subscribe button so whenever I post that video, you will get a notification. But pretty much what a grid does is that it gives you 12 columns to put on your Canva. And let's say you are designing on a desktop screen that might be 1920 by 1080 pixels, then these grid columns will just give you 12 columns right in the middle of your canvas. And now you can start to use this grid to align your elements properly. And if you think about it, what you can sort of do is sort of create columns, because that's the whole idea of the grid. If you have 12 columns coming from left to right, then that is one main section of your website. If you want to have 50% to 50%, that's 6 columns to the left and 6 columns to the right. So think about how you can place elements within these columns that you have on your grid system, so that you can make sure that your elements on the website are breathing properly, but they are also making sense in the design flow of the website. And the next thing you can do is also play with images. And right now a lot of images are being boxed together. So you might have a box of an image here, another one here, and then maybe some paragraph on the left side or whatnot. Sometimes what you can do is you can open up these images, maybe have, instead of a box image, maybe use some sort of like background images that will give you a bit more room to breathe on the website or in the section that you are designing. And this way the content might be able to be related to the image without having everything feel crowded and boxed on your website. And I think the last tip, which I think makes a lot of sense, is to actually use your Canva the way it should be used. Sometimes you have to make the grid, sometimes you have to break the grid. So what you can do is think about, let's go back again to the same example of a 1920 pixel website, white website, and 1080 pixels in height, which is your average screen size. Think about how you can place elements throughout this screen size or this Canva in a way where you can tell where everything is, and you know, the way everything flows without being super crowded. So feel free to, you know, maybe put the title on top, maybe put paragraphs in the middle, maybe put your call to actions right at the end of the screen, maybe put an image that flows from right to left. Just play around with it, see which is the best option for you to have on your website. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this content, and I'm gonna be creating a lot more videos like this. So if you're interested in finding out how you can enhance the experience of your website, of your user interfaces, make sure to stay tuned and click that subscribe button and the bell button, so whenever I post a video like this, you will get a notification, and I will see you again in the next video.